I know what a waffle house is. Sorry.
No waffle house.
Let's just play. Let's play this one and not like a waffle.
Founded by NYU Johns Hopkins B. Yeah. Toss-up 1. One of this religion's places of worship contains a venerated wall where this space two youngest martyrs, a 9-year-old and 6-year-old boy, were bricked up. The most sacred places of worship in this religion are known collectively as the 5 thrones, or 5 seats of temporal authority. This religion's places of worship, which often incorporate an outdoor element called a samovar, traditionally offer all visitors to their main halls a type of sweets made from semolina, butter, and sugar.
Pork chops.
Sorry. This religion's places of worship provide spaces for the group social practice known as pangas, which is a subset of this religion's practice of fellowship called a sanghas. Places of worship in this religion include a main hall called a darbar and a langar, which is a communal kitchen serving vegetarian food. For example, in the Indian religion, whose practitioners worship at gurudwaras such as Harmandir Sahib, also known as the Golden Temple. Thomas Pynchon's Entropy and Woody Allen's Retribution were first published in a magazine operated by this institution that David Lynn has edited since replacing Maryland Hacker in 1994. Which each leads to Ohio Liberal Arts College, whose namesake is Purdue, founded in 1959 by John Crow Benson, is a prestigious literary outlet. David Foster Wallace gave his commencement speech, This is Water, at this college.
Go ahead.
This is Kenyon College. Ransom's formalism influenced this sonnet by his student at Kenyon, James Wright. The speaker relates hanging himself to save the man from a pack of hoodlums, but upon failing says, I held the man for nothing in my arms. Answer. St. Judas. In this poet's Kenyon review after the sandstorm, he noted the brilliant way these professors used the language to criticize each other. This author of the novel Ham on Why often wrote about alcohol and St. Judas. Toss-up 2. The Flanders Quartet consists of players of this instrument, and it is the primary instrument of Paul Leyenhoek's. George Philip Telemann wrote a B-flat major double concerto for 2 of these instruments, strings and continuo. Luciano Berio is credited with revolutionizing the 20th century repertoire for this instrument with the piece Gesti, which was written for Franz Rubin. Ramp and Zamp argue that an unusually named instrument in one of J.S. Bach's scores actually consists of 2 of them.
It's like a recorder.
Yes.
A recorder.
That was my thoughts on ACF.
Okay.
In the presence of more than 4 conjugated double bonds, a set of rules named cocoon are used instead of these rules for 10 points each. Name this inherently derived set of rules for predicting the wavelength absorbed by a conjugated compound.
Oh, the weights? No, weights is like one.
Yeah.
Frank Compton.
Woodward's rules. Yeah. The energy of pi orbitals in conjugated molecules may be estimated using this method that expresses energy levels in terms of parameters alpha and beta. This method is named for the namesake of the 4n+2 rule.
The Hubble, yeah, Hubble.
When using the Hubble method, aromaticity may be determined by calculating this quantity that when positive indicates aromaticity and when negative indicates anti-aromaticity. This quantity equals difference in energy between pi electrons in a single molecule and its linear counterpart.
And it's some sort of formation energy or
Answer.
formation energy.
Dewar resonance energy. Sweet. A 1978 paper explained a subfeature found in one of these. Why is there no pronoun? By taking into account a type of wave theorized in another context that was damped by nonlinear and viscous effects. That Peter Goldreich and Scott Tremaine paper analyzed these objects, which are much smaller than galaxies, using the density wave theory of C.C. Lin and Frank Hsu. The wave-like deformation within a structure of this type is informally named Urquhart, and is part of the larger class of disturbances in these structures called propellers, after their shape. Regions of high density in these structures surrounded by regions of low density comprise a type of microstructure known as self-gravity wave. Another of these structures is believed to draw its material from leeches, which lies within the Roche limit of its primary. 2 of these structures designated A and B are separated by a gap that has been cleared of material by a venus
An accretion disk?
called the Cassini division, where Question points.
Oh,
God. That orbit the gas giant planets.
Rings.
Yes.
That's right.
Can you protest?
No, I know.
This military action is commemorated every September 11th during La Diada, or National Day, and the soldiers killed during it were buried at the grave of the mulberries, or Cruzada de las Mujeres, for 10 points each. In this 1713-1714 military action, during which the Duke of Berwick defeated forces under Rafael Casanova and the regiment known as La Coronela. Answer. 1714 Siege of Barcelona. The Siege of Barcelona began after the signing of the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, which had attempted to end this war, although Catalonia continued to support the Archduke Charles of Austria against Philip V. After the war, Philip V issued this set of laws that removed the autonomy of regions that were formerly part of the Aragonese crown, including abolishing the traditional charters of Valencia and Catalonia in an attempt to create a centralized Spanish state.
Yeah. Yes, they were.
Answer.
The June laws.
Nueva Planta decrees. And please make sure to speak up so I can hear your answers. In the previous game, it was 4. After assuming one office, this man gave his proclamation against vice and immorality, urging his state to replenish its militia reserves. He was the sole dissent in a vote electing himself governor, a position he retained until John Cook called for a re-election. This man used the anthem of the British royalty, the Heart of Hope, as music for a song he composed with the line, "By uniting we stand, by dividing we fall." As council president of his state, he refused to take military action against the Veterans' Mutiny of 1783, leading Congress to relocate itself to Princeton. His composer of the Liberty Song had his home at Poplar Hall and wrote 2 series of letters of Previous to the Tennessee Constitutional Convention. This man wrote down objections to the Townsend Act in his Letters from a Pennsylvania Dickens -5.
Wait.
I don't know what to do with this. Alright. What's your answer?
I say Dickinson.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I ruled before you finished saying the answer.
You did say Dickinson without break.
Yeah, but you did like pause, so I ruled on that.
I don't think it was word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was That's fine. I think it's fair.
So,
Presuming the answer is Dickinson.
Yeah.
so you would like to say your answer to
Dickinson.
Yes.
Okay, that's correct. Okay.
So it's okay. I think we're in agreement. Yeah.
Yeah, so. Bonus for you guys. A major role of this god was to serve as the scribe for Ma'at, his consort, while she judged the dead in the Hall of Two Truths, which at points each in this Isis-headed Egyptian deity Wisdom, who was regarded as the messenger of the gods. Yes, because Hellenistic Greeks saw thought as an equivalent of Hermes, they syncretized the two into this distinct figure, whose name means thrice great. They said to have written the sacred texts that are the basis of Hermeticism. Yeah. Ra commanded Thoth and Shu to retrieve this deity, who is not viewed in some sources, from the Nubian desert. To do so, the pair of gods disguised themselves as baboons and asked this deity to come home 1,077 times. A description or name is acceptable.
I think it's the Nile.
That was good. The Nile. Ra's daughter. That was not some sources. 20 points. 20, in Rabi al-Medid's Unnecessary Woman, Fadia's yells of "Take her back" reminds Alia of this poem as she refuses her half-brother's request to look after her mother. In The Loved One, Evelyn Waugh compares Dennis Barlow to a monk in prayer as he repeats a line from this poem set here at the quiet limit of the world. This poem speaker tells his lover that her eyes brighten slowly close to mine, ere yet they blind the stars, before noting that her horses beat with twilight into flakes of fire. Its speaker says, "And all I was in ashes," and later laments that the gods themselves cannot recall their gifts. The first stanza of this poem says that man comes and tills the field that lies beneath. This poem was begun which begun as appended to Ulysses, opens with the line, the woods decay and fall. The line, after many a summer died of form, appears in, for 10 points, what poem by Lord Tennyson about the lover of Eos who was given immortality but not eternal youth? Bonus, enter the following about Felix Mendelssohn for 10 points each. Mendelssohn's last larger orchestral work was the concerto for this instrument, played by Jascha Heifetz, Sarah Chen, and Joshua Bell. Mendelssohn's violin concerto was described as the heart stool of German violin concertos by this Austro-Hungarian collaborator of Johannes Brahms. This namesake of Europe's finest 19th century string quartet made a triumphant debut with the London Philharmonic at age 12 on Beethoven's own violin concerto.
Joachim?
Yes, this Hungarian-born student of Joachim edited one version of the Mendelssohn concerto for violin and piano, but had a larger impact at the St. Petersburg Conservatory, where he taught Heifetz and made him most time. He also spurned the dedication of Fyodor Tchaikovsky's violin concerto. Answer. Leopold Auer. 20. Loss of 6. An essay by Maurice Bloch contrasts two types of this concept, a socially constructed type used for rituals and a universal type used for everyday life. A 1978 book argues that anthropological fieldwork has been plagued by the schizogenic use of this concept because of the denial of co-evalness, which causes researchers to distinguish one type of this concept for themselves and another for the subjects they study. Clifford Geertz cited ceremonies with an absence of climax and a depersonalizing conception of personhood to argue that this concept is immobilized in Bali. Johannes Fabian described how anthropology makes its object in a book about this concept and the other. Benjamin Ward argued that the Hopi language uses different grammar for this concept than yes. This book was accompanied by 62 Ektachrome photographs that its authors claimed were the first ever made under the conditions that this book describes. In this 1953 book, edited by James Dugan and co-written by Frederic Dumas, which was made into the first documentary to win a Palme d'Or at Cannes. Answer. The Silent World. The Silent World was co-written by this French marine researcher and captain of the Calypso. Its authors, The Age of Missing Information, argued that Cousteau's popularizing of the world's oceans did not move anyone to take measures to save them. This Middlebury College professor wrote The End of Nature, a pioneering 1989 book about climate change.
Johnson.
Bill McKibben. Oh, 10. Joy Graham's poem Fission juxtaposes news of the JFK assassination with a scene from one of this director's films, noting that the way a character laid down on that lawn is not at the speed of desire. The title sequence of that film by this director is a close-up of a man's hands polishing a girl's toenails and was shot by Gilbert Taylor after this man fell out with Oswald Morris. In another of his films, the camera shows people at tea in an 18th century garden before tracking the protagonist's gaze by zooming to a lady walking her wheelchair-bound husband in the far background. Inspired by Hogarth paintings, this man used super fast Zeiss lenses.
The first one is
Starting with St. Augustine, Christian writers often criticize the immorality of a scene by this author in which Caria describes his rape of Pamphylia. Within was each named Roman playwright of Berber descent who wrote The Eunuch and The Mother-in-Law. Like his predecessor, Claudius, he adapted many of his plots to Greek comedy. This the best-known writer of 10th century Platonian Renaissance, Christianized Terence's style in her 6 closet dramas based on his work, including Sidious and Popjulius.
So it's a 10th century.
Answer. Bratwitha. Oh, a later German author, Christoph Wieland, called this Terence play's line, "I am a man, I consider nothing that is human alien to me," to be the best verse that humanity has ever inspired in a poet. This play opens with Menedinus punishing himself by digging in his fields. For an answer. The self-tormentor. 10. Possibly, a documentary history of this group consists of 2 volumes entitled Projectiles for the People and Dancing with Imperialism, and includes a pamphlet released by this group called the May Paper, which puts forth their flat concept. After a leader of this group broke out of prison by scheduling an interview for a fake book signing, a special courtroom was built inside the prison to put their members on trial. Operation Fire Magic successfully freed 86 hostages in Mogadishu that were used as bargaining chips in exchange for the release of members of this group. With the aid of the PFLP, this group hijacked Lufthansa flight.
The radar manufacturer.
Yes. And I want to get into the following about Stephen Snail, the featured scene of bright students with poor GPAs. For resolving the generalized Poincaré conjecture in dimensions greater than 4, Snail won this medal for young mathematicians, considered along with the Eva Arbel Prize to be the highest award in mathematics. Yes, the Poincaré conjecture asks whether manifolds that bear this relationship to 3 spheres are also homeomorphic to it. This relationship between spaces is analogous to a property often illustrated by a map from x cross 0, 1 to y. How much is the like Snail, who recently published in the American Economics Review, mathematician John Nash also dabbled in economics. Nash's 1950 PNAS paper, Equilibrium Points in N-person games, used this theorem, a generalization of the Brouwer fixed point theorem, to show the existence of his namesake equilibrium.
So I just think
Scientist. Kapitani fixed point theorem. Concept 9. Due to their flexibility, these compounds can experience a gate-opening effect that is likened to breathing. Supercritical CO2 is commonly used to activate these compounds, which can undergo a collapse upon removal of a solvent. HKUST1 is an example of these compounds formed from MPEs called allyls. Omar Yagi and Susumu Kitagawa are pioneers in the production of these compounds. Functionalization of these compounds is typically done through post-synthetic modifications. These compounds are the basis of reticular chemistry, and their names typically consist of an acronym referring to where they were synthesized, followed by a number. ZIFs are a class of these molecules containing imidazolate linkers, where terephthalic acid and other bridging ligands are commonly used in their synthesis. These molecules are almost always produced using hydrothermal or solvothermal methods, and are designed to be similar to zeolites, which points in these porous coordination polymers. Time.
Collaborates.
Novel organic frameworks, or NOFs. Concept 10. The protagonist of this novel repeatedly recalls the headline, "Lost in the fiery hell of a canyon, a woman struggles desperately for life." The last sentence of each chapter of this novel, such as "Give me your hand" and "Hell is my maximum," is repeated as the first sentence of the following chapter. While in a place she calls a minaret, the narrator of this novel realizes that she was aided by a woman who drew 2 monkey-like news and a dog and charcoal on the wall. In this novel, the main character vomits bread and milk that she consumed before forcing herself to eat an object that sporadically exudes white paste throughout the narrative. The protagonist of this novel, who is only identified by the tag on her luggage, enters the room of her penthouse where her recently departed maid had lived and undergoes a mystical experience after crushing a cockroach there, which points in this biblically titled novel by Clarice Lispector.
Near to the welfare.
No.
Fuck.
Time. Passion according to GH.
Yeah. That's how
At half by 130 to 35. Let's
Awesome. That's how come that is. Cherokee Allard's use of WGS and 16S rDNA studies found that the microbiome of this organ was most similar to that of the oral cavity. A protein involved in the formation of this structure is a membrane fusion protein coded by an endogenous retroviral element based on end proteins. High expression of heme oxygenase 1 in this organ assists in the activation of Tregs that assist in providing the structure and immune privilege. EBT cells in this structure enter another organ and are assisted by PNK cells in remodeling that other organ's spiral arteries. Syncytin is required for the development of this structure that contains macrophages called Hoffbauer cells. Immunoglobulin G can pass through this structure.
Placenta?
Yes.
Yeah.
This dictator, who bathed in dolphin blood to stay young, betrayed his ancestry by persecuting ethnic Chinese with the Enterprise Nationalization Law of 1963. Pretend while teaching this autocratic prime minister who ruled for 26 years after using the Union Revolutionary Council received power in 1962, after which he released an ideological tract titled as his country's way to socialism.
Turkmen Bashir was
Turkmen Win was prime minister of this country, which later witnessed the 888 uprising and produced the politicians Hu Tant and Aung San Suu Kyi. During the 888 uprising, students marching on Rome Road were drowned in this artificial lake, on whose shores Aung San Suu Kyi was later confined to house arrest. This lake, formerly called Lake Victoria, was built by the British in 1882 as a reservoir to supply Yangon. India Lake. 10. So 12. The selection of a shade of this color was based on a 1935 report on color and lighting that suggested emphasizing its structure as an important feature of the landscape. That report was written by Irving Morrow, who settled on using an unusual shade of this color that was similar to the primer on metal shipped from Bethlehem Steel. The craft nicknamed the Glamorous Lettuce was painted this color on a mission that involved being launched from the bomb bay of a B-29. Safety regulations require
Orange.
yes.
I think that's what we're talking about, the Tabasco orange, which Golden Gate and the safety tank is the.
Bonus. Edwin G. Burroughs and Mike Wallace wrote this document appeals to the Republican election for control and balance and distrust of Sinuous teacher present in John McComb's neoclassical theories. For them was each named this 1811 document that imposed a grid system above Houston Street in Manhattan.
Okay, it's a decree or like law.
Just the city plan of New York.
Okay, so city plan of New York.
No, this came later. This is the commissioner's plan of 1811.
Okay.
This man credited with inventing street grids, Hippodamus of Miletus. The man credited with inventing street grids, Hippodamus of Miletus, was hired by Pericles to lay out a grid for the rebuilding of this city that continues to serve as the main port for the Athens.
Great.
Aaron Haussmann used an unconventional street layout of wide boulevards emanating like curves from various plazas in his redesign of this capital.
Paris.
Yes. 13. A man with this name was called Labatus in Italy for introducing a military girdle there and lost his powers of divination after splitting into his teacher's mouth. A son of Sisyphus with this name refused to let his mares breathe, so after that he drove them mad when they drank from her sacred well. Like Labatus, that man of this name was eaten by his horses at the funeral games of Peleus and became Taraxippus of those 200 horses. After using a mulberry simile to describe a calf that changed from white to red to black, Polyidus found a boy with this name by tracking a mouse to a vat of honey in which that son of Minos had drowned.
Nice.
This character proclaims, "I'm happy, you're happy, we're all happy," even a heinous Irishman that walks along Broadway in a drunken speech. Which had one each. In this character, a new collecting member of the Drones Club. In one novel, this character drunkenly presents prices at the market's Snodsbury Grammar School after the main character gives him gin-laced orange juice to help him propose to Madeline Bassett.
Okay,
Novels are you?
this is like a redo it out. No. If he
Gussie
picked on.
Gussie appears in novels such as Bright Road Jeeves and The Code of Whisters by his comic British author. Among depictions of drunken public speaking in comic British literature, Gussie's speech is only rivaled in fame by the scene from Kingsley Amus's Lucky Jim, in which Jim mocks Mr. Dixon while delivering a lecture on this nostalgia.
Very
An exact two-word phrase is required.
very
Nice.
14. A king by this name came to power by publicly executing previous ruler and being son of the water carrier, or Bacha-e-Sakal. But after 4 years of rule, he was shot and killed at a high school graduation ceremony by the rebel Abdul Khalik in 1933. A much earlier ruler of this name required his subjects to wear a hat with 4 peaks named for him, and won an early victory as an army chief at the Battle of Damban and then built a city named for himself after destroying the Otaki dynasty. That ruler of this name developed a Sunni school known as Ja'farism and fought a 2-year war against the Yazidis in Dagestan after they killed and desecrated the corpse of his brother Ibrahim. That ruler of this name, who gouged out the eyes of his eldest son, Reza Holy Mirza, won the Battle of Carmel, after which he plundered the Red Fort. For 10 points, there. Yes. Not here. In 10 Theses on Politics, Jacques Rancière championed dissensus over consensus because the latter reduces politics to his institution. For 10 points each, name this institution. A 1970 essay subtitled Notes Towards an Investigation gives the example of a member of this institution hailing someone to illustrate how interpellation turns an individual into a subject. Answer: school, the police, or law enforcement. The example of the police officer appears in the essay Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses by this French Marxist who wrote with his student Rancière over the 1968 student uprisings.
Come on.
Louis Althusser. Rancière contributed to Althusser's book on reading this unfinished Karl Marx book that presents a critique of political economy. Yes. 15. An essay titled for this activity calls for a society for the diffusion of useful ignorance to spread beautiful knowledge. In the last chapter of the book about this activity, the author looks back at a small shrouded Las Vegas from a campground in Red Rocks. Wordsworth acquaintance John Stewart and the Peace Program are among the anecdotes about this activity discussed in a 2000 history of it. An essay about this activity proclaims, "Eastward I go only by force, but westward I go free," in the passage identifying the West with the wild. The Atlantic published that popular essay titled for this activity shortly after the death of its author, Henry David Thoreau. The recovering alcoholic Stephen Katz appears in a Bill Bryson novel book.
Hiking the Appalachian Trail.
Nice.
I have heard that Bill Bryson book.
The time component of this quantity is given by the Lorentz factor times the speed of light, for 10 points each. Give this vector quantity special relativity that equals the tangent vector to a world line for massive particles.
Tangent vector to the world line is just the velocity.
Answer.
The velocity.
Wrong.
The proper velocity.
For the velocity. In special relativity, the velocity is equal to the speed of light times this function of the rapidity.
The Jordan.
And H. Special relativity grew out of the Nicholson-Foley experiment, which obtained a null result for deflection of light by this medium through which light is
first ether.
First corresponding, I think, velocity.
Yeah, I'm protesting that the velocity for velocity should have just been outright taken.
Well, it says wrong.
Also, that's the 3/4, right? That's the 3/4.
It's, you want to score that?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so for McGill at 150 and Chicago B at 139.
Okay, plausible.
With 10
That
protests.
velocity should be.
Yeah.
Sorry. Class 16. This philosopher suggested that economic thought posits perfectly rational cognitive angels as an example of one of the useful untruths or idealizations that he discusses in a book drawing on Frank Ramsey and Hans Weihinger. This philosopher discussed how his father published an article asking whether his country was worth dying for in an essay responding to Martha Nussbaum's critical views on patriotism. This author of As If criticized W.E.B. Du Bois for merely rotating the axis of racial hierarchy in his essay on the uncompleted argument. This racial eliminativist discussed the conceptual mistakes of creed, color, country, and culture in his Rife Lectures. This philosopher writes the ethicist column for the New York Times.
Up here.
Yes. In 1637, this man was arrested for circulating books not licensed by the stationer's company, including William Prynne's News from Ipswich, that he refused to answer the questions of his Star Chamber. Someone teaching me this man coined the term freedom rights in his pamphlet, The Free Man's Freedom Vindicated. The campaign to free him from the Tower of London is cited as the founding moment of the Love Wars.
Just a comment.
Answer. John Wilburn. Wilburn left the military in 1645 after being told that he had to take the solemn leave and covenant to fight with his parliamentary force commanded by Oliver Cromwell at the battles such as Naseby. John Wilburn was greatly influenced by this historian whose 1563 work, Acts and Monuments, became known as his namesake Book of Martyrs and detailed sufferings of Protestants through the time of Queen Mary. Fox. 17. Robert Baldwin argued that the nearest figure at painting whose title mentions this person represented hope, citing 1 Corinthians 9-10. Hieronymus Bosch's The Hay Wain inspired Franz Rodenbeck's engraving All Hay, in which this person illustrates a maxim about someone who shall deceive himself. This person is shown upside down near a corner of an engraving from the 1560s that depicts an armed three-master in the foreground. In making an artistic cropping of a painting showing this person in the bottom right, André Breton cited the bombing of Dusseldorf and cut away images such as a bag of seeds resting against a rock and a horse with a blinker over its left eye. Ovid's Metamorphoses is the source of the images of a partridge, shepherd, and fisherman in a painting whose title mentions this person. Ships sail toward the setting sun. Yes. Good. Answer the following about the use of rock, soul, and funk instrumentation in jazz, which led to the creation of jazz fusion. This keywordist helped pioneer jazz fusion as a member of Miles Davis's second quintet. As a band leader, he released the seminal jazz funk album Headhunters.
Oh, not your third.
Hancock.
Hancock started using his company's iconic Rhodes electric piano while playing in Davis's quintet. This company's electric guitars include the jazz bass and the Stratocaster. Hancock made heavy use of the Rhodes and other new electronic instruments while recording a trio of experimental albums, including Crossings and The Sexton, under this Swahili pseudonym. Answer.
Sun Ra.
Wadishi. Lesson 19. In this modern-day country, a group of poor farmers were murdered by the militia after they tried to board a train without tickets during the Quebeler Uprising. A major fire in this country led the government to commission French archaeologist Ernest Debrard to rebuild a city. During a famine in this country, food relief was provided by the SS Toulouse, known as the steamship that carried peace, which sunk on its fifth voyage. A soldier from this country reportedly chased his stray dog north across the border of another country, instigating the incident at Petrich in 1925. This country, which was invaded during Operation Marita, was home to a daring style of dress popularized by its queen Amalia of Oldenburg after she married its first modern king, Otto.
Greece?
Yes.
Nice. These interactions hold together the hairpin of a PPRH and allow the formation of triple and quadruple discs, equivalent package index alternative to Watson Crick pairing, in which one of the AT or GC pair is rotating 180 degrees.
Sorry. Oh no, you're right.
Yes, this quadruplex structure forms as an intermediate in genetic recombination and double-strand break repair. Symmetric sequences in these junctions allow individual arms to slide along the sequences.
But I don't. What?
Polarity junctions.
Okay.
The hydrogen bonding and closely pairing occurs along this feature of the DNA helix, which in beta DNA has a width of 22 angstroms. Both GAPI and host stains bind to the smaller counterpart of this feature.
So the major. The major group.
20. And that mentioned, I skipped talking back to them, so we're going to go back to that. Xenotol bistable devices rely on patterning these materials. The free energy density of these materials can be approximated by expanding to second order in the curvature strains and collecting the terms into bend, splay, and twist terms, which yields the Ocene-Frank expression for that free energy. The parameter that characterizes these materials is typically computed as the average of the second-Legendre polynomial of cosine theta, where theta is the angle between the director and the
was that toss up much into?
I just switched,
Okay.
Sorry, what's also? That was
I just switched the order back.
We just switched 19. So just have to get this. There's something going on.
There's one more while there was an bonus. Two researchers at this university conducted a nationwide project which interviewed representatives of different social groups to see if they produced dominant, negotiated, or oppositional readings of the news. Pretend Want to Teach in this English university, whose Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies was founded by Richard Coggart and later directed by Stuart Hall.
LSE.
University of Birmingham. In an essay on New Labor's double shuffle, Hall criticized the third way in neoliberal ideology of this Labour Party Prime Minister and successor, Gordon Brown.
Blair.
After graduating from Birmingham's Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, this theorist analyzed the forms of resistance enacted by pen boys, punks, and reggae bands in his book Subculture: The Meaning of Style. Big Headage, and Hope.
Okay, so I have 200 from McGill, 195. Okay, all classes go.
Okay, so this is the last part.
A critic claimed that this novel shocked its readers as a Manet did the bewhiskered Philippines of his day with its lengthy description of an overgrown garden shaded by aspen trees. A metaphor in this novel's first chapter compares the tailcoats of men at a ball to flies fluttering around a block of sugar cut by an old housekeeper. During Dimitri's trial in the Brothers Karamazov, the lawyer Kirilovich questions the optimism of a passage from this novel, in which the narrator asks, "Who invented the of a bird-like object?" In a study of this novel's author that examines those passages, Vladimir Nabokov argued that this novel's characters exude a type of vulgarity called push-lust. In the last paragraph of this novel, the narrator imagines how nations and states gaze askance as they step aside and give her the right away. In an extended metaphor comparing Russia to a 3-horse sleigh or trade That's right. For 10 points, read this novel about the conman Chichikov by Nikolai Gogol.
Thank God.
The Alexandrian sonnet title for the nocturne of this person is a double acrostic spelling the phrase "the maiden in her dark pale meadow," as well as a perfect anagram of a sonnet by John Keats. That one page named the title figure of the poem that begins, "Any style of life is for him." The Zeno text was written to accompany that poem title to this person, which Christian Book encoded into the bacterial DNA to generate the response poem and the resulting poem.
Christian Book will be Noya, so that'll be my wild guess. Noya.
Orpheus. Just like the E. coli in the Xenotext project, this imagist wrote a poem called Eurydice, which states that hell must open like a red rose for the dead to pass. This woman wrote the collection Sea Garden and Helen in Egypt.
Good check. Start good. Good.
Angelo H.D. or Silvia Duco. This Austrian author wrote the poem Orpheus, Eurydice, Hermes, and a 55 cycle of poems called Sonnets to Orpheus. He also wrote the Juno Elegies. He wrote that.
Nice to look with Christy toss up.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So the final score was between
I knew it there, I just was like, it's gotta be slow.
Good grief, Lesnar.
But, good.
So
Good job.
the dream is still alive.
So now, I think we actually said here.
As a great man once said.
Yeah,
We hear about something for Christmas.
Thank you.